But obviously we're happy to have anyone join the club. But our sales pitch is, along the lines of, it's just sort of a fun environment, very low stakes. We're pretty much open to anybody that's interested in participating in the club with sort of in any capacity, and are able to create a fun environment where you can train together and meet new friends.
I feel like I've noticed that since we only have 4 years, the things that have really helped us keep an identity as a club is not only the mentorship that we can provide within the club, but also developing relationships with community members who can help remind us of our history or the role that we've played within the club.
All right, hello and welcome everybody to our Tri 312 Tri Talk series. And I am your host, Brian McClellan, and I am here with two amazing triathletes from the University of Chicago here in the Chicagoland area. And I got a chance to chat with them earlier on this year because they were in search of a new coach for their program. And I thought, even though I might not be that candidate, that they gave me such great information about who they were, what their club was about, that I couldn't help but ask them to come back on to our program and for me to interview them, get to know them a little bit more, and for them to tell us and everyone in our general area like a little bit more about University of Chicago Triathlon Club and how it differentiates between club programs collegiately as well as like the NCAA collegiate and championship programs. I'm sure there might be people out there that are curious about that, but just in the spirit of learning more about all of our clubs, including our collegiate programs out there, we have Jacob Stump and Haley Coleman. They are the co-presidents of the UChicago Triathlon Club. Jacob, Haley, thank you guys so much for being here. We really appreciate you joining us today.
Yep. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
All right. So first things first, let's get to know you guys just a little bit more. So Haley, we will start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of where you are both in college, where are you with University of Chicago? And also, how did you get into this crazy world of triathlon?
Oh, so many good questions. I am currently a third year. I'm a global studies major, and I got introduced to the world of triathlon after cycling through a lot of different sports and ending up just wanting to do something on my own. So I went kind of from rowing and softball. At some point, I was recruiting for sailing, and I just wanted something that I could do on my own and something that I could set personal goals, and I didn't necessarily need like to fit in like the structure of a team. So I started running, and I'd always kind of been cycling on the side. I ran myself into an injury, and once I realized that you can't really run off knee pain, I started swimming, and then I decided this would be a really fun thing to put together. And in Dallas, at least in the high school community, there aren't a lot of people doing triathlons. I guess not even a lot of women cycling in general. So I saw it as something that I could just go to the blanks, kind of cut to the clear space and make this kind of a thing that I do on my own. And then when I came to UChicago and there was a team, it was really nice because I had structured workouts. I knew how to correct my technique and all of these things that you have with a club sport that makes it a fun place that has a competitive environment that's not intimidating. So that's kind of how I chose triathlon. Triathlon chose me, and why I'm sticking to it.
That's nice. Now, when you were looking at colleges to go to, or that were in the ballpark of where you wanted to end up, did you already know that UChicago had a triathlon club, and that was a key point, or did it just was happenstance that the program that you wanted to get into was here at UChicago, and then it just by happenstance, by luck and by chance, it also happened to have a triathlon club?
Definitely by luck. Yeah, no, and it all worked out.
Amazing. Great. Jacob, same question over to you. So where are you with schooling at University of Chicago, and how did triathlon find you?
Yeah, so I am also a third year. And I sort of prior to coming to college, I had background in running. I ran all throughout middle school and throughout high school. I also had a few years of swimming experience. And so I knew that when I got to college, I didn't want to kind of deal with or handle the pressure of, doing a competitive sport or like a varsity sport. That assuming I was even good enough to be on to get on the team, but I didn't want to deal with the pressure a lot trying to manage schoolwork along with the high intensity varsity sport. And so I, figured that I would just still, keep running. And when I got to school, and I ended up finding a running club here on campus, and that was fun. And then I guess it was sort of very casual running club, very fun, but it didn't have the same competitive experience that I was used to from high school. And so I was sort of looking for something more along those lines. And I happened to find the triathlon club at they have a fair on the quad every year where all the clubs sort of table and you get to learn about all the clubs on campus. And I just happened to find the triathlon club through that. And then kind of started coming to practices, fell back in love with swimming. I'd taken a few years off in high school, and ended up, I didn't have a bike prior to that, and got a bike, sort of picked up all three along the way, and now I'm here. And then now I've done a few triathlons, and
loving it ever since.
Beating the club, yeah.
Yeah. Now, did you guys start about the same time, or were you guys joining at different times?
I think Haley probably found out about the club a little bit before I did. Would you say that's correct?
I think, yeah. I sought it out kind of before school, but I think you still joined within the first year. I would say we've kind of like we mostly overlapped.
Yeah, I joined like maybe 2 weeks into the school year. So both very, very early on, like during our first year in college.
Gotcha. So Jacob, you found out when you arrived here to University of Chicago, went to a club fair, perused around, and then discovered the triathlon club. Haley, it sounded like you found it just a little bit before you came to school. Is that correct? And how did you find out about the club?
I knew that a triathlon was something that I wanted to do.
Okay.
So I looked up UChicago Triathlon, and at that point, our website was kind of I think I was able to find an email address, and I sent out an email to the previous president saying, "This is something that I want to do. I have barely any experience. How do I do it?" And he sent me like a location for the first practice, and I showed up on a bike. I was excited I remember being super excited that it was like a bike to start off the first practice, because I felt like pretty confident on the bike, but I'm a very slow runner and still am a very slow runner and very slow swimmer. But yeah, it was just a cold email, and yeah, it worked out.
Gotcha. Now, it sounds like so you guys have sort of both grown up through this club together at University of Chicago, been there for about 3 years now. Are y'all the only two that have been 3 years through the program? Are there others like you that have stayed with the program from about the beginning that are there for 2, 3, 4 years? What's the typical dynamic of your club members, and how often or for how long do members typically stick around for the club?
I would say that the great thing about this club that I really like is that you have a lot of master's and undergraduate students. So with the master's students, I feel like a lot of the people that I met the first year, they were there for 2 years, and it was a shorter amount of time, but you saw them every single day, or like multiple times if they didn't come to every practice, like still multiple times a week. So it's a lot of like floating in and out. You get to meet a lot of different people, and it is kind of this like niche, very bonding thing to get to like connect with someone over. So I personally haven't known anyone for like 4 years who's done it, but Jacob, can you think of anyone who's done it for 3 years with us?
Trying to think. So I mean, there was Kareen was in the club for 2 years. She's abroad for the full year this year, so she isn't obviously able to be in the club this year, but she was a pretty active member for the 2 years. Certainly like Adam and Georgia have been members of the club they're both in their last year, senior year. They've been in the club for at least 3 years, if not more. So there's sort of, I guess there's a handful of, dedicated people who sort of, I guess, typically it tends to be the people that are maybe most active during their first year of participation in the club, which tends to be maybe 5 to 10. And those people will pretty much stick with the club for the next several years. And, then there's, we get influx, we get people. One of the hard things about college, especially in your first year, is just there's so many opportunities. There's hundreds of clubs on campus that all sound fascinating. And you kind of have to pare down to 2 or 3 that you ever have time to participate in. And so I think it's definitely a challenge to try and manage schedules. But
so that you guys are bringing up a good point, because and I hear elements of this in terms of like how people get into the sport, or even more specifically on how people get recruited into the sport, especially with the championship teams that are building through the NCAA with the women's team. And it sounds like for both of you guys now, Haley, you sort of like kind of came at it from a slightly different angle, having been and having participated in other sports and other athletic type of endeavors, and finding swimming, finding running. Jacob, you've had run and swim background, so there was already an element coming into college that you were either already interested in or had a passion about learning more about triathlon, or something that's triathlon adjacent. How many would you say, or do you have a lot of members that when they came through and found out about this is like, wow, this seems interesting, but I have no experience in swimming, biking, or running, and what sort of dynamic does that look like within your team?
The answer is absolutely yes. I think what I love about triathlons is that you can feel really good in one leg and then have very little experience in another. So there's constantly this like switching mentorship within our team, which I feel like allows us to still have that kind of core identity of people who like keep returning to practices and like stay with it through multiple years, but also allows some people who like might have just come off of a swim team and there's not really like a swim club at our school, so they'll come to our swim practices. But it's also the kind of place where I feel like people are willing to try new sports. We've taught people to bike and swim and run. This is something that we've been able to like maintain a really good balance of like both being competitive, but at the same time keeping our I don't think there are a lot of people who are like wanting to go pro right now or taking this like too seriously. I think it's usually people who have been on some sort of competitive like team backgrounds who are coming to college, still want that kind of camaraderie and being able to practice and like develop good habits, but not wanting it to take up like their whole life, and still seeing it as something as energizing as opposed to like something that takes energy.
Yeah, I think I agree. I would say on average, the average newcomer to the club has maybe some background in one of the 3: swimming, biking, or running. Rarely 2, and probably almost never 3. Like I think it's very rare to see someone that like has done triathlons before to join our club, just because like it's not a very common thing in high school, and I guess it's still not common in college. But
Sure.
but yeah, no, I think I definitely resonate with what Haley was saying about sort of the club dynamic and everything with that.
For sure.
And I think also it depends on like a little bit of other institutions exist in Hyde Park. So for example, we have a really like serious cycling program that does a lot of like fast-paced rides, and they're really good for getting that kind of training in. Whereas sometimes, because we know that that's a resource that we can provide and we can send people to, we will like offer more like laid back rides or like no drop rides, or we can really help people like build that as a skill to like finish out their like 3 sports or just come here because of the community. So we're also constantly in conversation with the other like teams, and like not only within UChicago but also outside of UChicago.
That's great. No, that's awesome. That's it. It's very important, as you were pointing out, having resources around you to help facilitate being able to not only improve in all three sports, but in a lot of cases, and it sounds like for a lot of your club members and your athletes, is to learn all three sports and to have some variety on how they can develop those skill sets. So that's great. So let's continue on with that sort of conversation. And so, really what we had hoped to do with this platform is to learn more about the club itself. And you guys are already giving me a lot of great stuff about who you guys are, what your club is about. But give me your sales pitch. Like, so when you're sitting there, I'm sure you guys are the ones and representatives, or you have some that are there each year promoting the club at the club expo. And if somebody comes up to you and is like, hey, I'm not really sure what triathlon is, can you tell me about what triathlon is and what this club is about? What do you tell them? Jacob, you
I
want to
guess I
start?
can.
Yeah, go
I guess
for
I
it.
can start.
Yeah,
I was one of those people at the club for this.
perfect.
Um, so yeah, I guess usually, start out by asking the person if they had any, background in swim, bike, and run. And usually, as I said, most people that are brave enough to walk up to the triathlon table probably have one of the three background. Because it's obviously an intimidating sport if you have none of the three. But obviously, we're happy to have anyone join the club. But yeah, I guess it's sort of our sales pitch is, along the lines of, we have of course, I'm sure we'll talk about this more later, but we've got a coach who is or at least our current coach, is a very, very seasoned, multiple or collegiate winner in her multiple times when she was in college, multiple time qualifier for Kona World Triathlon Championships, and super experienced in triathlon. And so she provides us workouts every, multiple times, or usually a couple times a day, or just once, or every day of the week, sometimes 2 days a week, 2 times a day. And so we have a really, seasoned coach who provides workouts, and I guess also that it's just sort of a fun environment, very low stakes. We kind of treat club practices. We don't have an attendance policy. We kind of treat it more as kind of a choose your own adventure. I guess, like Haley was saying earlier, like, you have some people that are just interested in swimming, or some people are just interested in running. And so we're pretty much open to anybody that's interested in participating in the club with sort of in any capacity, and are able to create a fun environment where you can train together and meet new friends.
That's great. Excellent.
I
Jacob.
think
Yeah, go
also
ahead.
just a little bit of club history. Before the president before us, he was the only undergraduate student on this team. And he used to recruit people by going up to anyone he knew who ran, biked, or swam and saying, just come to practice. Have you ever thought of doing triathlons? And by the end of, I think it must have been his fourth year when we overlapped, we had a pretty good undergraduate population, but just telling people to show up to practice. And usually the two hesitations that I feel like people have is either I'm slow, or I don't know or do not have the equipment to do one of the legs. So one of the things that we've been able to do, and that we're really focusing on doing in terms of making this sport more accessible, is saying any pace, you can come and join us. I usually say, I promise I'm slow. There have been a few times when people have been worried about going on being slow, and I've been like, okay, let's go on a run. I'll match your pace. I think you'll realize that that I'm struggling to keep up
Just
with you.
fine.
Yeah. And then second, we've been working with local bike shops, like Jay at Tamago Bikes has helped us with a bike loaner program, so that we don't have any of these financial barriers that we would usually see. At least we're focusing on trying to reduce them.
Yeah, no, that's an important part, because I think for a lot of people that are interested in the sport of triathlon, it can get really expensive really quick. And I can only imagine that being in college and going through all of and having to deal with a lot of these, would-be expenses, especially on the bike, and how much the bike itself entails, tune-ups, all the equipment, the nutrition, all of these things, all those things can add up. And so for having to do that while also being a college student, I've been there once before. I know how hard it is just to get by, period. But then to add on the expenses that triathlon can create, it's great that you do all have resources around you, not only with having a coach that can help with workouts and help you prepare the best you can, but also having partnerships with different bike shops and programs that are out there that can help any of your members be able to enter the sport with minimal barrier.
Yeah, no, I
That's great.
agree that I think the financial barrier is obviously a big deal. And so we haven't had a loaner bike program in the past. We've been trying to sort of get it instituted this year. The one bike shop that Haley mentioned is, very, very generous to our club and the cycling club. And so we have a couple of bikes at the moment that we are able to loan out to members of the club. And obviously we're hoping in the future to be able to get more, but it's a great sign, a great start, at least, to be able to even have a couple and hopefully, move forward in years to come. But I feel like getting a program started is sometimes the hardest part. So,
for sure. And speaking of which, how long has the program? When did the UChicago Triathlon? When did it start? Do you guys know a little bit of the history and how long it's been around, and how long you're hoping to keep moving it forward?
So I know that I want to say it was in the early 2000s that this club kind of materialized. I think what the size and format of the club has changed a lot. But with Leo, the past president, I think is when it really started to come back after COVID as this undergraduate and graduate student club. And I think now, at least on campus, it's a little bit more well known, and it's something that people see as like they know people inside of the club, and it's able to give it like a personality that seems a little bit more approachable, as opposed to this idea of like a triathlon or an Ironman that seems just like this like goal that not a lot of people have like really associated with, or like
Sure.
kind of let themselves see as something that they can do. But then if like by seeing our logo, by seeing us go on runs, like those kinds of things, I think it helps it kind of maintain that momentum and recruit more people.
Sure. How many club members do you guys currently have with the University of Chicago Triathlon Club?
So we have about 25 to 30 active members. And I would say at any given practice, we probably have about 10 people,
Okay.
Which is pretty good numbers for this, like being in the middle of the academic quarter is very, I don't know. There's a lot of people have midterms
Sure.
around this time, and it's very busy time. So to have, 10 people at practice during this time of the quarter is, I think, as many as I've seen during my 3 years.
It's a success. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And for of the active members that you have, how many typically will go with you to the various triathlon events that you compete in?
That's a good question. So we typically have we have two main races that we compete in every year. There's the Northwestern Indoor Triathlon that happens in the winter. And then there's the Collegiate Club Nationals, which is at the end of March this year down in Miami. And in the past, so the Northwestern race is open to anybody that is interested in potentially racing. And so I think last year we sent about 15 or a little more to that race last year.
That's great.
So we had a really big group, and it was a lot of fun. And the nice thing about that race is that it's really accessible it's a very short race, and it's time-based instead of distance-based. So it's very accessible to anybody. And so we try and really push that for everybody in the club.
And real quick, I'm just going to do a quick little plug here. We literally just got through talking like about a full half hour or so with my colleagues Chris and Joy about the benefits and what is an indoor triathlon. So if anybody's watching this right now and they want to go back and forth and like go check that video out, that would be great. So especially for us older adults that are also exploring the idea of getting into triathlon and how great an indoor triathlon is to explore and get into the sport, especially if, again, finances are a barrier, not knowing much about sports, not feeling strong about any one of those three disciplines, and how great an indoor triathlon is to get that first experience out of the way.
Yeah. The great thing about the Northwestern Indoor Triathlon, and I assume other indoor triathlons as well, is just that you're riding on a stationary bike machine. And so you don't need to have your own bike. The only thing you need is
you have to worry about bike skills,
shoes you can
cars.
So yeah, that too. So it's very beginner accessible.
And
then
I think also in an environment where we're having a lot of people come from a lot of different like places in the country, Chicago is cold. Chicago can be hard to train in. Whenever we go to nationals, it's an outdoor triathlon. Usually our season kind of gets cut short and we're not able to train outside many weeks before the actual race. So to have this benchmark is huge for building confidence and saying you can get better on a trainer or on a treadmill or like in a pool. Like these are options and they're good options.
When
Sorry.
so when is that next scheduled collegiate championship down in Florida, in Miami?
I believe it's March 28th and 29th.
Yeah, so you guys don't have any time to really train outdoors.
In the past, it's been like the second weekend in April, so we've had a couple weeks at the beginning of the spring that we could usually ride outdoors that would be warm enough. But this year it's 2 weeks earlier, so it'll be a little bit tough for people that are less experienced on the bike and open water swimming as well. But I mean, that's always been an issue because Lake Michigan is freezing all winter. So
right.
There have been some great practices leading up to nationals where we've all been putting on wetsuits in the pool and practicing spotting and just sweating with like the
oh god, yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
How many different things do you guys like throw in the pool to like sort of create that sort of element of having to like swim around other things, other people, like creating the challenges within the pool dynamic?
What I think is so great about nationals is that for so many people, it is their first time experiencing any of that. I think that, I mean, for making like selections and seeing like which athletes should go to nationals, I feel like swimming does end up being a big component of like how strong of a swimmer are you, or like if someone like grabs you to try and like get ahead, like how would you respond in that situation? My first year, that answer was definitely a bit of like flip over and float for a while and let people pass you.
Yeah.
But I think it is hard because it is literally trial by fire.
Unfortunately, it does kind of end up being that way for a lot of us. I mean, true. It's great to get into open water. It's great to practice. I mean, it's great why to have or be in a club is because you can swim and work with others around you and try to as best simulate the environment that you're going to be in once you get into open water. And when you're jostling it up with other swimmers from other clubs, from other schools, and and as much as even we as coaches have tried to create those scenario and a pool dynamic, and have even like designated disruptors where we'll have a swimmer go in and like do all those things, like swim over that swimmer, grab that foot, or kind of like stop short, like make them have to adjust and sort of get the feel of what that's going to be like. But once you're actually out there mixing up and the adrenaline's going, you've got like however many upteenth number of swimmers that are around you. I mean, it literally just becomes trial by fire that first time. And as long as you're able to just sort of manage your anxiety, continue to breathe, flip onto your back, let other people swim around you. If you have a good strategy, you'll be able to get through it. So I commend and applaud all those first timers that go out there for that first step of the putter slam. Speaking of which, how many do typically go with you guys to those larger events, the outdoor events like the collegiate nationals?
So we typically send a team of 10 athletes.
Okay.
to nationals.
Is it the same 10 that show up to practice every day?
Well, the 10 that are at practice, it's not the same 10 every time. It's,
Sure.
cycling in and out. But it's, yeah, I mean, that certainly is something we factor into how we decide. That's one of the major things that factors into how we decide who we send to nationals. Because we usually, with only sending 10 athletes, there's usually more people interested than we can actually take. And
Okay.
usually our team size is limited by our club budget and the logistics of the more people we get, the more plane tickets we have to pay for race registration, the more rental cars we have to get, and it's kind of a whole headache. But so anyway, we try. Ideally, we would have a team of five men and 5 women. And in the past, it's been a bit of a challenge. Usually, there's just, I think, in the sport in general, and in our club, it tends to be a little bit more, I guess, more men than women in the club. And so sometimes it's a bit of a challenge trying to even the numbers. I think this year it looks like we might be able to have a full team of 5 and 5, which would be great, because I think last year it was maybe 2 and 7. The year before it was 4 and 6. So
Okay, that's great.
I think it's also like when, like I think it's definitely a club defining moment when we like choose the team in some ways, because we have to have the conversations of like, well, what do we want to prioritize in like a team? And something that I am like really proud of with this club is the way that we look more at how often are you coming to practice over like speed. What is your investment in the team and why do you want to be here? Like that we're able to take those into account as opposed to like who's just the fastest or who might be the strongest. I think that's something that says a lot about our team and our priorities. So yeah, definitely a fun time kind of every year. Also, just seeing how many new people we've been able to introduce to the sport and now love it and want to do this competitively. I think it is nice to see people kind of invest, especially after a time when like there weren't a lot of undergraduate students interested in UChicago.
Sure. So, conversations that the three of us have already had prior to this evening, talking about helping you guys find, because your current coach is moving on to other endeavors and isn't able to continue to work with you guys. You guys just hired a new coach, which is awesome. That you guys found someone so quickly, and that's great. Happy for you guys. But it also sounds that that whereas in a championship type of NCAA sport, so for the women's divisions of USA or excuse me, NCAA championship triathlon sport, they, being the schools, they will hire the coach. Coach does a lot of the legwork. So that is recruiting, budgeting, doing all of these things, facilitating and all the logistics of races and events and things like that. In this case, being a club environment, it sounds like that role is switched to where it's you guys doing all of that legwork, right? Doing the recruiting, working on logistics, working on budgets, granted working with and hiring the coach to support you guys. So tell us a little bit more about that. What does that dynamic look like for the two of you to basically be the ones to run this club and to speak to athletes, recruit them to be full-time college students and also athletes yourselves? So tell us a little bit more about that dynamic and the challenges you face.
I personally think our board is great, and it's an amazing experience to get to both compete with each other, but then also see this as a club that we're trying to like raise and foster. It's like being able to have that thing outside of practice that gets to kind of like be a place where we can collaborate and kind of work through problems, I feel like has actually made us a lot stronger as a team. Kind of I really like going to nationals or any of these big races where we've had our treasurers, race coordinators, like both of us, all of us working together to make this happen, and then getting to kind of celebrate that as a team and knowing that we have not only put in the training to be here, but we've done all the logistics and we've made our flights, made our accommodations, disassembled our bikes, done everything that we need to together as a team to get there. And so when you cross that finish line, it's like you've already won because you've done all of the work that you need to do to not only like make this happen for yourself, but make it happen for everyone else too.
For sure.
Yeah. I guess sort of adding on to that, I guess, yeah, right. As Haley said, the two of us are not the only people that are involved in club leadership. I think we have a total of maybe 8 people involved this year. We've got a couple of race coordinators who plan on logistics for races. We've got a treasurer who deals with finances and managing the club budget. We have someone who deals with managing our equipment. We have bike trainers that we loan out to people and dealing with uniforms and team merch every year, along with outreach and social chairs. And so I guess, right, and I guess one thing I should add is that like in the past, I think this new system of the division of labor among the club board is relatively new. I think instituted in the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
But I think we all really, I guess, love the way the club is structured. It's nice that we can count on other people to, get, like, no one person is responsible for everything, and it's nice to be able to just kind of like let things go.
Yeah. Was it one of you guys or another team member, the previous president, that sort of made that decision or implemented that new strategy to have more involvement with, to have a board of club members to help sort of like divvy out the responsibilities a little bit more? Or was it something that just by collaboration or communication with other clubs, other programs around the country, of seeing sort of best practices and how they operated, that sort of manifested into y'all feeling like you're just that much more able to break up those responsibilities and feel more efficient that way?
If I recall correctly, it was I think the club used to be run by, it was just 3 people who did all the work in running the club, and one of them was a law student at the law school at the University of Chicago, and she just, I think, one day decided that there was going to be all these new roles, division of the club leadership, and
you get a role and you get a role.
Yeah.
And
Document is like a 20 or 30 page, like clause divided, like these are the principles, these are the
so you're telling me a lawyer created the documents that
literally a lawyer wrote it.
Being in a family of lawyers, I understand that completely.
It is beautiful and it's meticulous, and it's something that I feel like we've all actually worked to. I mean, has a yearly, like month by month breakdown of all of the responsibilities of every.
Wow.
And I feel like having those things that people can contribute, this is also where I feel like having a lot of different majors represented on the team has actually been really helpful. So like, for example, we have a grad student who's been helping us out with like our finance recently, and having a law student kind of literally help us assemble our club. I think a lot of these things it's kind of a nice outlet for a lot of our different interests, and it's perfect because we have a lot of different academic backgrounds.
For sure.
And I guess just on top of just the, I don't know, benefit for utility of having a wide variety of backgrounds, it's nice to, I don't know, just be in a club where people are not, it's not like, I feel like I'm studying math and econ, and most of the people I interact with on a daily basis are in that world. And so it's nice to, I guess, have a community that isn't defined by that and is just a wide variety of people that are all just love exercising and doing triathlon. And it's a great community that is benefited by having such a diverse group of people, including both different, majors, areas of study, as well as different age group. We have, anywhere from first year undergraduate all the way to fifth, sixth year PhD student, and even, community members that are live in Hyde Park and join us for club activities. So it's really a great, I don't know, just community that's bettered by the diversity of so many people that are in the club.
I could not agree with you guys more, and I think it is the diversity factor that both I think is something that is special about our sport, but could also be something that can be improved within our sport. And I think that hopefully as we all continue to grow and get older, you guys have more time to get older than yours truly, but as you guys go through the sports and develop, and I hope you guys are able to continue to pay that forward, and to continue to build the community as you guys get into your professional lives, whether you're staying here in Chicago, moving on to other places, other countries. I believe one is still joining us from China at the moment. But I think it is that community that still keeps us driving, keeps us humble, keeps us motivated, and keeps us loving the sport. When you sit back and look at it, it is still kind of crazy of what we do and how we're able to do it and still fit all these things in while still having productive, active, healthy lives with school or the careers that we have, the families that we have and or are creating. So I hope you guys are able to help not only continue to build that for yourselves and appreciate that, but also continue to pay it forward to the rest of the students that you guys have there at the University of Chicago and beyond. But before I let you guys go, we're kind of getting down to our hour here. I kind of wanted to leave you guys with this: is that if there was one thing for each of you that in terms of, like, say, a legacy that for the two of you guys, that what you put into this club already, and of the people that you've met, the athletes that you've engaged with, for the school and for the sport. And Jacob, I'll start with you. If you were to leave a legacy of what you hope to for the University of Chicago Triathlon Club to retain or maintain as an essence of what you hope that sport and the club will be beyond you as you leave University of Chicago, what do you think that would be?
It's a good question. I'm going to need a minute to think.
So Haley, coming to you, do you have something that you think that in terms of a legacy that you would like to leave behind to the University of Chicago's Triathlon Club?
I feel like I've noticed that since we only have 4 years, the things that have really helped us keep an identity as a club is not only the mentorship that we can provide within the club, but also developing relationships with community members, who can help remind us of our history or the role that we've played within the club. And also see how we can provide that access to all 3 sports to not only people within our community, but also, not just people at our university, but also people within our community. And seeing, okay, we have a group of people that is maybe interested in learning more about bike maintenance and doing their own thing with bikes. How can they learn how to do that? How can we get people on bikes? How can we introduce people to different running clubs and different teams? Because at the end of the day, training as a group is great, but sometimes people need to add in extra practices. It's kind of having that external relationship with other people that allows us to both expand the resources that we're able to give our members, but then also who help us keep our narrative of what role we serve in Hyde Park and what our team prioritizes and what we mean to the community. So I would say if there's one thing that I had to give, or I guess pass on, is just maintaining relationships and developing new ones with different people in our communities. And even with our new coach, hopefully she'll be with us for a while, and we'll be able to introduce her to new people, and she'll be able to introduce us to new people, and we'll just become more connected.
Haley, you gave such a such a good answer that I kind of want to, I don't know, steal it and I don't know, jump off it. As Haley said before, like no one on the club, aside from like we had one master's student a few years ago who ended up going pro, but like no one in the club is here because they want to like go pro or like are seriously, you know, there's different levels of seriousness of how hard you are at training and how competitive you want to be. But I think most people are here for some sort of community aspect, and I think that the really building the community is really a fundamental part. And I mean, I guess even like this year, because there's so many different groups around that are doing similar things. There isn't per se a swim club on campus, but aside from that, there's a cycling club which is pretty popular. There's a running club, and so this year we've really tried to start implementing into our practice schedule a more, I guess, collaborative environment where we one day a week will go on a run with the running club. One day a week we started joining the cycling club on their rides. And I think in the past, I think that these have sort of been mechanisms that were in place. And I think there used to be, the owner of the bike shop was telling me there were like 8 or 9 different groups that would all join together and ride together on the weekend and like just kind of a casual social ride. And all of these sorts of collaborative things are things that have kind of disappeared over the years, maybe somewhat partly because of COVID, somewhat partly because of the people who organized it moved on to different places or different aspirations. And so I think that trying to re-implement some of these, historical mechanisms that used to be in place and build a more cohesive community in the Hyde Park area is something that I think is really important.
You guys, that is awesome. That is great. That is perfect. Haley, Jacob, I think one of the other questions I'd hope to maybe ask was like, can if someone was to come up to you and say like, why join the club? I think our hour together already has more than answered that question, and just the passion and the enthusiasm and the sincerity that you guys have about the sport, about your club, about the people that you interact with, that you collaborate with within this community. I mean, I think it says it all as why being with the club and interacting with people like yourselves and people that are dissimilar from you in terms of all the different demographic differences, socioeconomic differences. All those things are great positives to be able to employ when you are interacting with each other in a club environment like this. So I think it's a pretty positive sell. I hope more and more people that maybe try interested that are in high school right now looking at the University of Chicago, that they might see this particular interview, meet you guys through this interview process, and understand that if they decided that triathlon was the way they wanted to go, they would be in good hands. And that if and when you guys leave, probably more when versus if, I would imagine that when you guys leave, you will have left the club between you, your board, the rest of your athletes who are sort of passing the torch, that they are in good hands with the next generation. So thank you guys so much for being here. But before we go, I have one last thing is, so for a lot of our listeners, a lot of them are going to be like our relatively newer triathletes that probably not in high school, probably not collegiate. They are young to older professionals that might be also exploring the idea of getting into the sport for the first time. So for you guys, like also on the ground level, like introducing athletes to the sport for the first time, being in the collegiate environment, competing, doing indoor tries, outdoor tries. I mean, you guys have been in it now for a while. I feel you guys are a good authority to answer this question or to provide this advice. So if you had one piece of advice for that, more advanced, soon to be or would be triathlete that's out there, that's interested in entering the sport, if you had one piece of advice for them, what would that be? Haley, we'll start with you.
Oh, I would say if this is a group of people that already knows all about, like, listen to your body, don't overtrain, all of that kind of stuff. Um, I would say it's a lot more fun if you approach it knowing that, like, if there's a leg or two legs that are intimidating, to just ask for help, show up. I've always had a lot more fun at races, and I feel like everyone else likes the people who show up with, like, I think we've had people compete on, like, mountain bikes and
Yeah,
and computers before. Um just show up, have a good time. Um, don't take yourself too seriously at first. It will come naturally if you want to take it to the next level, but the hardest first part is just diving in literally. So, yeah, don't take yourself too seriously and have fun. Don't get
perfect.
freaked out about equipment being the
Excellent.
fastest.
Yeah, excellent. Perfect. That's great. Jacob, what do you think? What's your
Yeah,
one piece of advice?
I think what I was gonna say is very similar, and it's just kind of have fun with it. When you're just starting out, you're not gonna be the fastest person out there just because it takes a long time to build up a competence and in each of the three sports. And so if you're expecting to be, winning a race in a year or even 2 years, I think it's good to set reasonable expectations, because I think if you take yourself too seriously, as Haley said, and you, I don't know, are you can start to lose the, I guess, fun of the sport and the training and the community if you are too focused on the competitive aspect. And I guess that's true for kind of anything. But I think, I don't know, especially as I, get older, the, competitive mindset is, I guess, less strong than it used to be for me, even as I'm, moving through college. And I think it's, yeah, it's really about the community and having fun with it, and doing something because you really love it and enjoy it. And yeah, that's what I would
Perfect.
say.
That's great. Jacob, that's awesome. Both of you guys, I think that no matter who would be listening to this right now, that especially our listeners and viewers that are veterans of the sport would wholeheartedly agree with everything you guys just said. I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you guys said as well. Is if we go back to listen to a lot of our other athletes that we've interviewed, coaches, team leaders, people adjacent to the sport that are familiar with it and have been doing this for whether it's for the first time or for years and years and decades, that a lot of them will echo that same sort of idea of don't take it too seriously, have fun, enjoy, smile, and especially the hardest part is just stepping foot and just going for it, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that think that they can't do it, or they're not good enough, or they're not fast enough. I mean, a lot of the things that you guys have alluded to today. But sometimes it's just taking that first step and knowing that it's okay, and you're going to be around people that are going to support you and that will not judge you and are going to be welcoming you with open arms to say, hey, welcome to our community, and what is it that I can do to help? And if you do ask for help, there will be any number of people around that will be more than happy and more than willing to provide the help and support and give advice as much as that they are willing to do. So, guys, as you continue through your school life and as you go on to your careers, I know this will probably not be the last time we talk, or maybe even see you guys before you all graduate. But if nothing else, continue to do what you guys are doing. For those of us that love the sports and are hoping to continue to build the community and the grassroots effort of creating more amazing triathletes out there, and you guys are doing it from the ground level, basically. We support with what you guys do, and if there's anything else that we guys can do out there to support you guys and promote that UChicago Triathlon Club, and see you guys at either indoor tries or collegiate nationals and club championships out there, we will for sure be rooting you on. probably in addition to any other Chicago area clubs as well. But you guys are our first interviewees, our first collegiate club program to be interviewed. So if we're gonna root for somebody first, it'll be you guys. Any parting thoughts before we finish tonight?
Just thank you for having us on and being so open. I mean, when we first reached out to you, you were just so welcoming and gave us so many resources. And it really showed me that, like, this is what I love about the triathlon community, is that everyone knows how hard it can be to just break the ice and get into the community. And any triathlon club or event that I've been in anywhere in the world, people have had that attitude. So I would just say thank you for embodying that and giving us so many resources in this time. And for anyone out there, it's like this everywhere. Like, the triathlon people are good people. 10 out of 10 recommend. Just
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really have anything much more to add on top of that. Just thank you so much for having us on, and really enjoyed chatting with you.
Guys, thank you so much for your times. Thank you so much for telling us so much about your club, about you guys, about your program, about all of these great things. And I'm sure more people might be interested in learning more. And if they can, we will make sure that y'all's information is down below in our resources page and in the description below. Feel free to reach out, support, congratulate, and cheer on these amazing athletes and their team throughout the 25 season. And guys, we look forward to seeing you guys out there mixing it up in races and hopefully at in future Tri 312 interviews and events. So thank you guys so much for being here, and have a great night. Hey guys, thank you all so much for being here with our Tri 312 community. We are trying to get to 312, our 312 number for subscribers for next year. So that will help us greatly to grow our community, grow our support, and grow our ability to help provide information and news and updates and all sorts of things that we will hope to provide for our Tri 312 network. So please like, subscribe, comment on all of our stuff here below. And we look forward to share with all of your friends. And we look forward to seeing you at the next Tri 312 event.